Recognize the member for Memramcook-Tantramar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am rising today to speak to the adjournment motion, which I wouldn't need to do if there was the calendar motion that government had brought forward, if it was actually debated and passed, and which I wouldn't need to do if we had a permanent calendar in the House that was adopted. But here we are, Mr. Speaker, once again, debating an adjournment motion. And I would call on PP Locke to make those changes so that we adopt a calendar finally. This is something we've been pushing for years. We've talked about, in the recommendations about a family-friendly legislature. It would help with our planning and meeting the needs of our constituents. So, Mr. Speaker, it's about time that we had a permanent calendar in the New Brunswick legislature. We have also been, we're adjourning, but we've been sitting about half the number of days that used to be the average before the Gallant and Higgs governments came to power, and it means that there's not enough time to always get what government wants to get done, let alone what opposition and what the Green Party are trying to do. What that means, Mr. Speaker, is there's not enough time to properly debate things. There have been closure motions that have been brought forward and threatened in this session, and rushing bills through, not enough time to properly deal with them. Mr. Speaker, there have been 34 bills that are going for royal assent today. And I am, again, with Bill 114, I'm glad that we set the precedent and we had witnesses come for that one. But, Mr. Speaker, there were other ones that I don't think got the scrutiny that they deserved, that did not get the time that they deserved. And things, I know filibustering happens, but then other things get rushed through and don't get the proper time, and we don't sit enough days in this legislature, Mr. Speaker. It is nonsense, frankly, for opposition parties to have to give up opposition time to do the work of the government. There should have been enough time for the committee to meet and to not have the threat of closure hanging over it. I'm glad that something was worked out, but it's just nonsense the way things are being run. It's disorganized. There's not enough time to do the work, Mr. Speaker. It's not acceptable. And so I thank goodness that we did have the witnesses, but think of all the bills where we haven't, Mr. Speaker. Think of all the bills that we tried to send a law amendments, or we tried in committee to bring witnesses, and no, it wasn't allowed. So I'm glad this precedent has been set, but Mr. Speaker, the work here is very important, and it's not always up to the quality that it should be, and one of the reasons is because we don't sit enough, and one of the reasons is just the way things have been run traditionally here, and it needs to change. So, Mr. Speaker, we've had 34 bills, some of them rushed through, some of them not given the time they needed. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, this raises the issue of the need for a different electoral system, the need for proportional representation, because we have majority government, and what that means is that the government, I mean, they're not listening to, the majority government's not listening to what I'm saying right now necessarily, but they're talking at the same time.
Members, could you keep it down a bit, please? I'd like to hear the speaker. Member Cook-Tantramar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So what it means is the majority government can do whatever it wants. Even they don't have to listen. They can rush things through. They can threaten closure. They can do things to just push through their agenda, and that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable, Mr. Speaker. And this government has 26% of the population's votes, Mr. Speaker. It's not. They don't have a majority of the votes, but they have 100% of the power. And so, Mr. Speaker, again, this highlights the necessity for proportional representation, for a different electoral system. So, unfortunately, we haven't even had time for everything we need. We need to be in this House more often to keep a government accountable, to properly debate things. We need a permanent calendar. We need more sitting days. We need proportional representation. Mr. Speaker, New Brunswickers deserve better. Thank you.